So,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
So would you tell me a little bit about, what happened to your family?
So we were traveling on our Pesach holiday with the second day of Passover, 2023, April the 7th, Friday. We left in the morning in two cars, my wife with Maia and Rina. Maia was 20, Rina 15. I was with my son Yehuda and daughter Tali, and we have a fifth daughter who was in Jerusalem for the weekend. We drove following ways up the 90, Route 90, through the Jordan Valley. Ways directed us both on a sort of longer route around to bypass the top part of the 90. I changed the route to continue straight because I had Lucy's voice ringing in my ears. She'd always tell me to continue straight, it was the easiest, and even if it took a bit longer. And I assumed she would do the same. She didn't do the same, she took a left. And about half an hour later, I got a telephone call from my sister, who was in a car about an hour behind us. And she said, we've heard that there's been a terror attack on the road. Are you okay? So I said, I'm okay. So I immediately called Lucy, no answer. I called Maia, no answer. I called Rina, no answer. Then I checked Google Family Link and I saw that they were at the Hamra Junction, which was where we'd heard the terrorist attack had been. So we turned around immediately. As I was on the route, my son, through Telegram, saw a site where they post pictures of the terror attacks, and there was a photograph of the car, which was our car with our beach bag splattered in blood on the back of the seat. So we knew the worst had happened, so we drove down there. I desperately wanted to identify that it was them. The police wouldn't let me anywhere near it, so we sat for about an hour in an ambulance. At the end of an hour I said, we've got some proof, because I knew that the mother had been airlifted to Ein Kerem Hospital for operations, and I thought we might have to be there. And eventually they brought me the ID card from Maia. So we knew the worst, and I immediately set off down to Jerusalem. We spent the night, I spent the next 3 or 4 days in the hospital in Ein Kerem. Lucy had an operation to remove 2 bullets, one from her brainstem and one from her spine. Unfortunately, it didn't succeed, and we buried my 2 daughters on the Sunday and my wife on the Tuesday.
I mean, what an awful, I can't imagine. Yeah. I mean, we'd just been to Israel when this happened, and so I read your story straight away, and our hearts went out to you. Horrific thing to happen. We're so sorry. So obviously your life and has changed completely since this point, and your children, your other children.
So yeah, I mean, how have we coped? What's helped us? Many things have helped us. Number one, from the moment this happened, we felt a very warm hug from the whole Jewish people, not just in Israel, but all over the world. And we got literally thousands, maybe tens of thousands of messages from people, Jews and non-Jews actually. It really was incredible. Strange enough, I met somebody else you should speak to called Avida Bechar, who's a survivor from Be'eri, who lost his wife and 15-year-old son hiding in the safe room in their house under attack for 12 hours by terrorists. And he lost a leg as well. But I met him in his hotel in the Dead Sea about a month after the tragedy, and I couldn't understand how he was coping with it so well until that evening I went with him to the hall of the hotel. They had a meeting for 1,000 members of the kibbutz Be'eri in that hall, and I saw them all together. And I realized that for him, he hadn't lost 2 members of a family of 6, but actually 2 members of a family of 1,000.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I hadn't lost 3 members of a family of 7, but really 3 members of a family of 14 million. And the fact that everybody had sort of come around and been involved really was one of the most amazing things. The second thing, at the end of the 30 days of mourning, I turned to my kids and I said, we're starting a new world. I said we were in world number 1 with 2 parents and 5 kids. We're now entering world number 2 with 1 parent and 3 kids. So we've had 30 days of pain and crying and suffering in between, but we have to start afresh, and it's going to be a good world, it's going to be a happy world, but a world with memories of world number 1, but completely different, and everything starts from now.
Yeah.
And that really was how it was. I mean, everything changed, but in many ways, situation helped us as well, because my son started a new school very soon after. My daughter went to seminary, and my oldest daughter, although she had 2nd year in her work, it was a very different sort of experience for her starting again. And I quit my job as a teacher, and people got me involved in many different things and projects, and I continue to do those until it runs out. But so my life has changed. So in a sense, the fact that everything has changed so dramatically means that we don't see our life before and our life now as comparable. No. Really.
They're too different.
But we have wonderful memories, and we're now in the sort of week leading up to. We have some memorial services taking place this weekend, basically, Sunday, Friday, Monday.
That all must be quite hard.
So it's very this is a tough time, because everybody's pouring in, your family, and but I think we've had to. Everything has been a challenge. Every time we come to a new Jewish holiday, has been a challenge. The first Shabbat, sitting. One of the things we heard from other families was. Sitting around the Shabbat table without members of your family is very difficult. So at the end of the Shiva, the 7 days of mourning, we have a table that's got an extra piece in the middle, so there used to be 7 of us sitting around it. So I thought, I'll take the piece out and make it into a small table for the 4 of us. But I was so miserable every time I saw it, I couldn't deal with it, so I had to put it back in again.
You had to put it.
And we heard from other families that it took them maybe a year before they could sit around the table just by themselves without inviting people or going out to people. One friend of my daughter's told her it took her 8 years, her family. After 3 months, I said, we have to do this, bite the bullet. And Friday night we sat around the table, the 4 of us, and actually it was a very good experience. And since then, Friday nights, if we're all at home, we sit at home together, and we have a very nice Friday night. I asked the kids afterwards how it was, and one daughter still says it's very nice, but it's not a family. So how long will it take before they feel it's a family?
It's interesting, because when I spoke to Racheli Frankel, and of course, her response to what happened to Naphtali was incredible. She spoke through that. But when I asked her how her children had responded, that was the one thing that she said was extremely difficult for her.
Right. And my kids lost their mother.
Yeah. Just pain on, and then to be followed by October the 7th.
So October the 7th, obviously a huge tragedy. And people ask me how we felt after that. And I tell them we started our new world on April the 7th, really, or maybe just after that. And our world changed, so we're in world number 2. I said, when October the 7th happened, I think the whole world's gone into world number 3. So we were like 2 worlds away from where we started. So strangely, for our personal tragedy, we felt further away from it, although we're very much attached to the national tragedy.
Yeah.
But we feel that what we went through, the whole Jewish people went through, exactly 6 months to the day later.
Yes, on a huge scale.
On a huge scale.
But each one is your own world, as you're saying, isn't it?
Yes.
So the fact that it's hundreds of people that have now experienced what you experienced each individual pain is as great, even though everybody's together. As well, other people that I've spoken to have spoken much about this hug, from the Jewish people. Even though I've no similar experience, that's how I feel coming into the Jewish community with my own history. So I think one thing that I really admire about the Jewish people and everybody that I've spoken to, Steve and yourself and everyone, is the resilience, that spirit that okay, we're going to move into World 2 with the help of God, that He'll strengthen us.
We have a purpose. I mean, I speak for myself, but for my family, but we feel we're very much driven. We're here in Israel because we believe this is the home of Jewish people. We live a Jewish life because we believe it's the way to bring up our children, and it's the way to live, and it develops good and shalom in the world. And I talk about shalom rather than peace, because the two are different.
Yeah.
Peace comes from my rabbi teacher, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, of blessed
Jonathan
memory.
Sachs,
Used to say that peace comes from the Latin pax, which means absence of fighting. Shalom comes from the Hebrew shlemut, which means complete.
Okay.
So, in other words,
a different route.
So what does it mean? So basically, if you have two kids fighting in a classroom, and one teacher pulls one away and one teacher pulls the other away, then you've got peace. But until a third person comes along and says to them, what we're fighting about, let's see if we can sort this out, you won't have shalom.
Yeah.
And I think the Jewish culture is about creating shalom.
Yeah.
And there's something, when we look at the world, particularly at the moment, it's clear that there aren't many cultures out there that have that agenda. So, so we better be doing it, because there are very few of us left, and the world needs us.
Yeah, the world definitely does need you. Well, I'm going to finish this recording here, but I just want to ask you before I do, if there's something that you would like to say to the people, in Britain, in Great Britain, from the community that you came from originally. When did you come to Israel?
So we came, I quit my job as a financial investor in 2004.
Okay.
And we came for 4 years, and I started to become a rabbi in Israel. And then 2008, we went back to England for 6 years, and I was a rabbi. Really, my wife was she was the brains. I was the sort of the sidekick for 6 years in two communities. And then we came back again in 2014. But one of my, I guess, the messages that I think is important, Christians, Jews, a number of people have asked me, do you regret coming to live in Israel? Do you regret, what if you hadn't come to Israel? What if you'd left 10 minutes later in the morning after the attack?
Yeah.
What if, and there's so many what ifs. And I've been thinking about it, from the beginning I felt this is not a question that I want to ask. And I've come to the conclusion that it's forbidden to ask, in life, what if, except for one what if, which is, what if God knows better than I do? Which I think is permissible.
Mm-hmm.
What if God actually knows what He's doing, and this is His plan? I think that is the one what if that one should ask.
It's the only thing, isn't it, that can help us just to come through something. Yeah. Is that understanding?
I think we have a lot of plans in our lives, and I would have loved to have seen my daughters married and have their grandchildren in my lap. But sometimes God's got a different plan, and maybe He had that plan from the outset. Maybe my expectations were not right, were inaccurate from the beginning. So.
It's natural to want to do that, isn't it? And,
right.
and life interrupts us with things that we absolutely don't expect.
Yeah.
But they are, like you say, almost God's interruptions.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you though about, Lucy and Maia and Rina. I mean, they look from their photographs just wonderful people.
Yeah. They were even better than they looked.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Right.
That's okay, I've got to speak. So Lucy was an English teacher. I was actually at her school last night. They were making a video, a song video in her honor, which they composed and they sang, and it's professionally produced, and it's coming out hopefully in a week or two's time. It was beautiful. She still has students there who just said they adored her. She gave everybody some personal attention. She was on WhatsApp till 11, 12 o'clock at night to all the students. She would keep on top of their work and ask why they didn't turn up, and they all felt personally sort of loved by her. She was a community builder. She was, when we went to Britain as a rabbinical couple, she was the one that they wanted, and she really had a hand in building communities wherever she went. She would bring people together, invite them around our Shabbat table, introduce people to each other, and create connections and relationships between people. And then we could walk away because they didn't need us anymore. And that was really that was her approach. And she was a very kind-hearted person. She was visiting a young mother, helping her, and arranging communal learning classes in the community. A strange fact, a very nice lady who received her heart because we actually donated her organs, saved 5 lives. She saved 5 lives, heart, 2 kidneys, lungs, and a liver. And the lady who received the heart was telling me last week that she started to visit a young mother, that she started to keep a Sabbath. She gets a group of women together to say Psalms together once a week, which are all things that Lucy used to do. And now, whether it's because she knew that that's what Lucy did and she feels obligated to do that, or whether it's because she thinks that the heart actually has driven her to do that, I don't know. But it's really quite incredible. She said her life has improved and she's just happier and she's just like a different person. I find that quite really astonishing. Maia was really a princess. I mean, she was our oldest. She had a lot of friends. She also brought friends together from disparate groups, and she'd always invite them together and they'd meet each other. And strangely, after what happened, 2 of her best friends who really didn't know each other have now become best friends with each other. She was a connector. And she loved teaching and learning, and she was really incredible. Rina, Rina took me aside when she was about 12, and we went for a nice walk on a Shabbat afternoon for an hour and a half. And she said to me, "I'm not happy. I don't feel I'm stretched." She was a sort of A-grade student in every subject she did. And she said, "I don't feel I'm being stretched." So I said, "Well, look, you've got 2 choices." I said, either you could start a university degree, which you could have done in maths or in science or in Torah or in any subject you wanted. And then you can do that and get a degree by the time you're 18 or 16 or whatever it is. I said, or you could say, I'm one of these lucky people who has, it takes me 10% of the time to do the work, and you can dedicate your time to friends or other activities, volunteering things which are important as well. So that was how we left it. And then literally 6 months later, I noticed that she had selected her new high school, which was not the most academic. So she'd really not opted for the university option. Yeah. And she was spending 90% of her time with friends, helping people, volunteering. She was an amazing youth worker. She had a group of 30 kids that she built from scratch in the local youth group. And she made that decision. And because of that, there are a lot of people who miss her, even to today.
Yeah.
And people who are emulating her. So a number of projects have been kicked off at her school, which literally are happening now, a year later. They've organized a trip for hundreds of girls around the country to Masada because Rina loved to travel and go with friends just overnight, different places. They're building a spring in Hamra where the tragedy took place. They built a nice little sort of social area in the school gardens with a pergola where people can get together and sit and talk. And one of the things that she was very careful about was praying the afternoon prayers, mincha. And not all girls are that sort of careful about praying that prayer. And her school have now taken upon themselves, all the girls do it, and not only that, her friends in other schools have done it too. So now a number of schools around the area, they are getting together for 15 minutes to pray afternoon prayers in memory of Rina, and girls are sort of very passionate about it. And so she had a massive impact.
A massive impact. They're like all three of them have left a huge impact, haven't they, on the lives of people around them.
So somebody said to me that some people, well, Chief Rabbi of Israel actually, Rabbi Leo, said to me at the Shiva, the 7 days of mourning, he said that there's a book of life, and some people have 120 pages, and some people have 15 pages or 20 pages or 48 pages. She said, but some people have 120 pages of big writing and big gaps between the lines.
Yeah.
And some people have 15 pages with very small writing and very small space between the lines. And I said, wait here. And I rushed off into the other room and I grabbed a copy of Sapiens, which is subtitled The Book of Life of Man or something, History of Man. And I showed it to him. I said, a year ago, this was the year before the tragedy, I said to Rina, because she wasn't being stretched in English, you should read this book. We could discuss it. So 2-3 months before the tragedy, she came back to me with some notes. I said, well, the notes. She said, I read through the book, and Sapiens, which is a book about evolution, argues with a lot of ideas that we have as Jews in terms of creation and so forth, and different ideas about how we behave as people. So I've made notes about all the differences that he has with what we believe, and I'd like to discuss it with you. So to my sorrow, I didn't ever get around to doing that. But I showed him these pages that she'd made of notes, and her writing was very small, with very small gaps between the lines. I said, you're a prophet.
Yeah.
They said, no. He said, I'm not a prophet. But it was one of those bizarre.
Absolutely summed up.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, Rabbi Leo. And I'm going to finish this recording here.